The reason why the Anglo-Saxons are losing their culture is because they have abandoned it.
No, it's because the EU's bigger in North Africa.
It's because they have abandoned it. English people have abandoned their own culture.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with immigration. The process started in the Enlightenment in the 1700s. The Christian
Your premise,
faith.
right, is that these people are more British than me because of a man who lived in a time when they believed in magic.
They have more in common with me as an Anglo-Saxon
because
Christian.
you're nonsensical.
Thank you.
Yes.
They have more in common with me
As a Wally,
as an Anglo-Saxon Christian than they do with you. Meaning that since for most of Christian history your ancestors were Christian, they have more in common with your ancestors than you do. English culture used to be dignified when it followed Christian morality. Dressing with modesty, behaving with modesty. Because these groups
Let's complete our conversation because this lot obviously want your blood, and it looks like you can deal with it. But what I'll say is
it's wrong. I agree with you, and I will give you a platform to talk about it.
No, he's reasonable. Knock you out right now.
We're going to go have a discussion, Michael. Who's really Godwin? You should be here for this discussion.
Yes, I am.
It'll be interesting.
I am a brother.
Hi, how you doing? This is also a fellow Nigerian brother. Good to meet you.
Alright. So, let's just.
It's very windy. Can I hear us?
Can you guys hear us over the wind?
Yeah.
You good? All right. So, Vinny, just tell us a little bit about who you are, what organisation you're with, and why you're here.
I'm from the Reality Report.
Yeah.
The Reality Report is basically heavily against this sort of communist rubbish which is being... So for instance, if you look at things like Black Lives Matter, if you look at things like LGBT, they're not about gay people or black people. They're actually communists using these venues, and if you say it's a load of rubbish, you're a racist or a homophobe.
Yeah.
And these are the sort of things that need to be tackled. The sort of transgender issues that are being forced on our people, the advocation that this isn't a multicultural society, all the sort of rubbish things which, for instance, if you look at the average sort of football match, shall we say,
Yeah.
the BBC will come up to you and deliberately choose someone that they know will make a wally out of themselves.
Yeah.
I got sick of it.
Yeah.
So I offered the chances to say, well, no, maybe some people here have got bloody good jobs and they're here out of deep concern.
Yeah.
We're also heavily against the de-whitening of Europe via North African, Middle Eastern immigration.
Yeah.
Now, we should be helping Jamaica. Why we're not helping Jamaica? Because there's no finance for us. We should be helping Cambodia. There's no finance for us. The only thing that is being brought in are things which are designed to ruin the culture of Great Britain.
Okay, so you've had a good say about what you are for and against.
Oh, I'm also anti-theist.
An anti-theist, that's fine. So there's a number of points upon which we can discuss. And the first of those points that I'd like to discuss is the idea of Black Lives Matter. I mean, just to be clear, do you believe that Black Lives matter? Obviously. Right. So we get the obvious out of the way.
To answer.
Yeah, I know it is, but it's something to clarify.
I mean, if you want me to sleep with a black woman, I'll do it. I mean,
that's I'm not even going to get into that conversation. So what? But then you also said, so you're not saying that black lives are worth less than white lives.
No, I'm saying that Black Lives Matter itself is the same entity as Antifa,
Yeah.
same entity as LGBT.
I agree there is a hypocrisy around the agenda of Black Lives Matter because it's Black Lives Matter when they're in the USA or Europe, but they don't matter if they're in Haiti or Jamaica.
Can I say
or
that black
Africa
people,
or
and
in Sudan.
I don't want to offend anyone here, but black people have far more sense of humour than Black Lives Matter would have us believe. Okay, comedy itself is under deep risk.
Again, a side issue. You've also said that you're against the de-whitening of Europe.
Yes.
Just unpack that for me, what you mean by the de-whitening.
Very
of
controversial statement, and I can understand why anyone's ears would be pricked up straight away. But best friend actually is Turkish. My favourite food is West Indian. We live in such a multicultural society that we no longer need what we're getting. So let me finish before I can see your brain ticking. Now, the point being, the only people that the mass immigration is coming from are not directly white. That's fine if they didn't also hold ideas which make it difficult to mix. So, like I said, I dare the government, why don't we bring in 500,000 Jamaicans over the next 10 years? They won't. It's not in their interest. The de-whitening of Europe is the degeneration of Europe, because Great Britain is this. I would never expect any one country to lose its sovereignty, but my flag's now becoming illegal.
Okay.
Our anthems are illegal.
Let's just deal with what you're saying. So you're saying the importation of migrant communities threatens our culture
in a massive
okay.
way.
So let me ask you this question. There's a number of Christian brothers that I have in this audience that I know come from Africa, and just for the camera, could those Christian brothers who are from Africa put your hands up, please, so you can be identified?
You don't get photoshopped. Yeah.
So
Forgive you, don't worry, brother.
these are my brothers in Christ.
Brilliant.
And as a Christian, I belong to an international community known as the Church, which makes no distinction between races. The colour of the skin is immaterial. And I have no problem with these brothers coming here, at all.
You're assuming I do.
Right. I'm asking you straightforwardly, do you have a problem with these brothers coming to Europe?
Well, I don't know who they are.
We've just identified them.
Right, I can see them. I don't know their belief systems.
They're all Christians.
Well, no, it's not the issue then.
So, do you have a problem with them coming to Europe?
At this stage, with the mass amount of people, we need to slow it down, yes.
So you have a problem with these brothers of mine coming to Europe?
In 2018, yeah.
Even though their values and beliefs are more in connection with British history than your own?
No, they're not.
Are you sure?
Yes, absolutely. Because I love churches, it doesn't mean they're relevant in 2018.
Okay, so what you're saying is that British history, which has been Christian for how long?
Oh, a long time. I don't even know. Long time. Yeah. I mean, I was raised Roman Catholic. I'm heavily...
Answer the question that I asked you.
couldn't tell you.
Right. So we're talking about over 1,000 years of British history. Probably the first Christian communities arrived here in the 1st and the 2nd century. Celtic Christianity took off probably around the 2nd or 3rd century. Roman Catholic Christianity emerged in the 4th century. So from earliest times, because we all know from school that when we're taught our history, it starts at the Roman period and works forward.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay? So Christianity has been at the root of the formation of British society
So is syphilis.
for 2,000 years. So my question to you is, and that's part of our culture, that's part of our identity. No, the Christian faith.
Yeah.
So these brothers who have come from Africa are more in tune and tone with the cultural heritage of this land than your atheism, which only became dominant in the sort of 1960s as a culture.
I'm afraid what you're doing is giving religion far too much credit.
So, which part of my history is incorrect? Please correct me.
All of it.
Go on.
Because if God, the Abrahamic God, is a load of rubbish. If you want to
That's a theological statement. I asked you about my history of the land.
No, the history of the land. We also burnt witches. Things need to change.
Again, I've asked you to correct which part of my I have made.
No, they're correct.
I have made a thesis.
They're
The
correct.
thesis is this: Christian history and Christian culture has been formed by the Christian faith, and black Africans who are Christian are more in tune with the values and the doctrines of the Christian church than yourself.
Right, so?
Which means that black African Christians are more in tune with the inheritance of this land than yourself.
Am I free to say this is a load of rubbish?
Right, yes, of course you are.
Yeah.
Now prove it.
Okay, because God is in your mind, you're giving him all this credit. They can believe fairy tales all they want. It doesn't make you English, it doesn't make you British. Okay, being born here, loving British people, loving the values and the things that we know makes you British. I'm afraid praying to a man that may or may not exist, that you cannot prove, may or may have ever been here. His son was probably several Jewish speakers, probably didn't exist. And to suggest that that makes people more British than me is narcissistic.
Okay, so here's your argument. Your argument is based upon a theological statement that God does not exist.
Are you accusing me of being theological?
I am accusing you of not knowing the kind of argument you're trying to make. You're making a theological argument. God does not exist, and therefore
he made it.
my argument is hocus and pocus. I have made a historical argument that the Christian faith has influenced the culture of this land for all of its history.
The worst, yeah.
And what I am saying is, regardless of whether you think it's for the worse or the better, and we can get onto that.
Completely relevant.
Right. So I am saying that African Christians have more in common with the Christian inheritance of this land than you do.
Oh, so
because
if I believe
your
in Kentucky
belief
witchcraft,
system.
so if I believe in Kentucky witchcraft and an African doesn't, I'm more African, am I?
So your belief system has no roots in our culture as a people, and now I am speaking as an Englishman, as an Anglo-Saxon.
You don't sound like one. You sound like a theist loon.
Right. I might sound like a theist loon, but deal with the historical argument that I've made.
Okay.
Are you able to deal with it?
Yes, I'm going back to the point
Right.
I made.
So deal with the historical argument, not
Easy.
some theological crap.
Easy. Like I said, if I now suddenly become Kentucky witchcraft and start burning people, and there's Africans in Africa that don't believe in Kentucky, am I suddenly more African than them?
If you take on the whole of their values and their culture, yes.
No, I put a woman in a ditch and I burn her to death. Am I suddenly more African than Africans?
Let me deal
You're
with
a
this point.
narcissist.
Do you believe in abortion?
I'm indifferent.
Indifferent. He's indifferent about 1 million deaths a year, and he's trying to lecture me about child death.
Yes.
Abortion is murder, let's be clear. And the reason, ladies and gentlemen, why the English are dying is because they are addicted to a hedonistic lifestyle where they are more interested in beer, sex, aborting their children, contraception, and the abandonment that gets dressed up in short skirts and crop tops and goes out on a Friday night and gets drunk and lays in her own puke. That is why English culture is dying. Because you have abandoned the things that made us great. And that is the Christian faith. How many English white girls do we see on a Friday night dressing no better than a street prostitute? How many? I agree that is wrong. It is wrong. Absolutely. Two wrongs don't make a right. But you're talking about a culture that has been abandoned by the very people claiming to defend it. It is wrong and should be condemned. And the rapists should be in prison for a long time. For a long time. Anyone, any woman, any child who has suffered a crime at the hand of a gang of Muslims, those Muslims should be punished. Can we finish? They should be punished as well. They should be punished as well. They should be punished. Every MP, every police officer, every civil servant, all go to prison. All of them. I am for justice. I am a Christian. Every child that was raped, those rapists should be punished. Every police officer that covered up the crimes should be punished. Every civil servant, every social worker should be punished. Every councillor, every MP should be punished. All of them. I believe in justice, and if you're a victim of a crime, you should be punished.
I'm on the same page.
Are you a Christian?
Listen to me.
Okay.
Just listen to me. So taking that into consideration, what are you saying about victims of abuse?
Victims of abuse should be supported, the criminals should be punished, and those who are criminals includes those who covered it up.
Yeah, exactly.
I agree with that. But my argument with him is not about that. My argument with him is not about that. I am saying that English culture was never about dressing like a street hooker. English culture used to be dignified when it followed Christian morality, dressing with modesty, behaving with modesty. Because these groups are claiming to defend English culture, and they have abandoned English culture.
One more point, okay? Right, okay, because you've got some good points to make, and let's complete our conversation, because this lot obviously want your blood, and it looks like you can deal with it. But what I'll say is
It's wrong. I agree with you, and I will give you a platform to talk about it.
No, he's reasonable. Knock you out right now.
listen, go.
Yes.
That's a new culture for you.
Do you see the lack of discipline that the English have become without their Christian faith?
Let's have it right, let's have it right. Between you and I believe. Can you not still hear me? Shall we walk along?
Let's move back a bit.
No more silence.
I agree, totally.
Yeah, no, keep it shut.
Can we please, for the benefit of the
We're going to finish, sorry, I'm going to make one last statement.
The English went round the world ripped in college, so keep your mouth
What
shut.
you're basically saying is the Englishness of us derives from our religious culture and upbringing and background. I can completely see where you're coming from. From my perspective, everything that harms us is what you're saying. Now, for you to assert this without knowing God's will, and especially how excited you got, shows that you are emotionally attached to something that you can't prove. And it means you are a danger to this society, to realism, to realising we've only got X amount of years to live, to appreciate our life. Now, when you say I undermine abortion, no, because I'm in
You're
reality.
indifferent, right?
Yeah, but listen, let me finish.
If you're indifferent,
Let me finish.
no, if you're morally indifferent to mass murder, then
Right.
you are
But
complicit
the
in the
difference
mass
between you
murder.
and I is,
the
I'm not
only
saying-
moral position in abortion is to oppose
Okay,
it.
I agree.
Anyone who
Okay,
doesn't oppose
fine.
it is guilty of facilitating
Please let me
it.
finish. Point being, the difference between you and I is, I'm not saying there's an omnipotent creator that watches it happen.
Right, let's just deal with that. Let's just deal with that. Because the brother is making an argument that scientific...
No, I won the argument.
No, you haven't. You can characterise it however you want. People on YouTube are quite able to make their own decisions.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they will. So let's not inflate our egos. So the argument that you're making, and it's the same argument that many atheists make, is that scientific knowledge is the supreme form of knowledge.
Have you seen God?
I want to tell you that you're wrong. Because the supreme form of knowledge is knowing how best to love. That is the
So why
supreme
does
form
AIDS
of
exist? Why
knowledge.
does
And
AIDS
it is
exist?
greater than simply knowing scientific
Why did the
facts.
Pope?
Did you even hear what I said?
Yes. but
What
it's
did
all
I
driven.
say?
You're trying to
What
say.
did- repeat
you're
what I
try-
said.
You're trying to say that religious has some sort of benefit.
No, he didn't hear what I said, did he? He weren't listening. He weren't listening. I'll repeat it
All
to
right,
you.
but shout less.
I'll repeat it to you.
Shout and spit less.
The brother is saying that scientific knowledge is the highest form of knowledge.
No.
I am saying to him he is wrong. The highest form of knowledge is knowing how best to love. Because if you don't know how to love your mother, your father, your brothers, your sisters, your neighbour, your enemies, then all of your scientific knowledge is
Are you
useless.
suggesting that I need religion to know right from wrong?
Yes.
We wouldn't have got to Mount Sinai, mate.
Dude.
The Ten Commandments would never have been found if we
Dude.
were raping each other all the way.
King Alfred the Great.
And Mount Sinai is not
Why
been
is
found,
he
by the
called
way.
King Alfred the Great?
Dunno.
Do you know who he is?
Not really.
So, a man who's here to defend English culture doesn't know the first Anglo-Saxon king.
He wasn't the first
The first of unified Anglo-Saxon culture he was.
Why is that relevant in the
The
slightest?
first unified Anglo-Saxon king was Alfred the Great.
Yeah, but the guy shouting
Because before that, there were different kingdoms that were destroyed by the Danish invasion.
the guy also shouting
Alfred the Great. Alfred the Great founded his kingdom
your
upon
premise-
the
Your
Christian
premise,
faith.
right, is that these people are more British than me because of a man who lived in a time when they believed in magic.
They have more in common with me as an Anglo-Saxon
Yes, because you're
Christian.
nonsensical.
Thank you.
Yes.
They have more in common with me
As a Wally, yeah.
as an Anglo-Saxon Christian than they do with you. Meaning that since for most of Christian history your ancestors were Christian, they have more in common with your ancestors than you do.
Hold on.
How do you know that we're
Alfred the
atheists?
Great was called Alfred the Great in
You've all
You seem to know a lot.
your ancestors, I guarantee, were Christian.
You guarantee.
Yes.
They didn't have doubts in their head. You know that.
I am absolutely sure that if we go back 500, 600, 700, 800 years,
They'll have been written as Christian.
They were
But
Christian.
you know they believed,
they were Christian.
right? Not the point. Did they believe?
Yes.
You know that.
Yes.
So what you just said is so unscientific to say something.
It's historical, brother.
Hang on. So my
We're not
opinion.
talking about scientific
So
inquiry.
if we went back
We're
500
talking about
years,
historical
right.
inquiry.
So you're telling me you knew every human being's mind.
Where is
before
your
they were born.
atheist? Where is your atheist intellect when it comes to understanding the difference between scientific inquiry and historical inquiry.
It's right here.
All the way through this discussion, you've confused them. You confuse theology with history, and now you're confusing science with
You're the one
history.
doing that, son.
You're saying it's scientific. No, we're making a historical inquiry about your ancestors.
I also said we used to burn witches. Is that relevant? No, it's not.
Well, no, we can talk about that.
If you want to base everything on the past, we used to do disgusting things, so it's not relevant at all.
And our Christian faith
Is now needs to be got rid of. Yeah.
You think so? You're disconnecting yourself from your own history while claiming to defend your own heritage.
Yes, because I wouldn't cut a woman's head off for adultery either. We used to do all sorts of things I wouldn't do now.
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. A man who is indifferent to today's mass murder of children inside their mother's wombs cannot lecture a Christian about historical crimes.
All right,
You
okay.
can't.
Well, you in
simply
that case
can't.
are a super criminal for this reason.
Go on, my
because
friend.
you are asserting that someone up there who thinks you're so important that you're blessed, whereas those 25,000 kids, they're not as important as you. They die.
Let's deal with that. Let's deal with that
I've
because
dealt with it.
the brother is again making the kind of clumsy argument that we hear from all kind of egotistical atheistic secularists, which is some blasé brand generalized
There's a lot of
statement
dribble coming at you.
coming against the Christian faith without any understanding of it. The Christian faith teaches men and women have free will and are moral
they don't.
agents able to
they
make
don't.
free choices.
No, they don't.
Yes, it does.
What, you and I have free will?
Yes, we do.
So if you stab me to death right now, where's my free will?
If I stab you to death, that is an act of free will, is it
No,
not?
no. Where's my free will in that act?
I have the free will.
Yes. So
Yes.
my free will doesn't matter, does it? We don't all have free will. You're talking rubbish.
You're talking absolute gibberish, my friend.
No.
Do you not understand what the concept of free will is?
Yes.
What is free will?
As free will, we all have a decision what to do with our life. Fair enough? Okay? But if you come over to me and stab me to death, I want to live. It's not relevant. Your free will has undermined my free will.
So
You're talking out
your
ass.
argument is that I have free will then?
You don't have free will because someone could kill you and you don't want to die.
So they have free
also,
will then?
let me nip this in the bud.
You're
Are
just
you
talking
saying
rubbish,
that
my
we
friend.
have free will because the boss gave it to us? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, we have free will.
Then you're a wally.
Go on, explain why.
Because that contradicts free will.
Okay, go on, explain why.
Because free will should be ours only. Like I said, if a terrorist blows up 20 people, their free will has been undermined by one person's free will.
This is utter illogical
No, it's not.
nonsense.
So your free will is more important
The
than mine.
act of, let me explain to you what free will is. Let me explain what free will is.
Come on,
A man who seeks to give his own commentary to try and justify the fact that he's winning an argument definitely is someone who knows he's on the road.
What about a murder victim?
So, let us be clear about what free will is. Free will is free agency. It means...
Oh, it's changed now, is it?
It hasn't. That has been always the definition.
Okay, let's hear it. I'm
It
interested.
has always been the definition. Free agency means that you are capable of making moral choices. It is not saying it is not saying that those free choices don't have moral consequence. Those are two different statements. You're trying to argue that because a free will action has a moral consequence in that it denies the free will of another
running
person,
away from this. Let me make
that
this point.
means
Let me
that
make this
free
point.
will
You are running
doesn't
around the
exist.
houses. Listen,
This is kind
if
of
you
rubbish.
stab me to death, my free will is undermined. You're talking out your ass.
So let's just deal with your atheism. Let's talk about that.
No, stay on subject. You give
We are talking about free will. We are talking about
They're
free will.
serious, but
Yeah.
I'm not impressed.
Yeah, right. It doesn't matter to me if you're impressed. The people who are watching this on YouTube can decide whether you're a
Yes.
clown or not. I think you're a clown. So, my point to you.
He says
My
believing
point
in
to
the of Jesus' existence.
Let me
No,
explain
so
to you
you're-
why it takes too much faith to be an atheist. To be an atheist,
Never mind the person.
to be an
Never mind
atheist,
Jesus.
That's obvious morality.
to be an
Let him
atheist,
finish. Let him finish.
to be an atheist, you have to believe that something came from nothing. Tell me,
Yes,
can
easy.
you get something from nothing?
Absolutely.
How?
Because you're under the premise that there was ever a beginning. An infinite timeline undermines everything you're saying.
Okay, you're saying that the universe has always been here.
I don't know, but most likely it's more believable than saying a Jew 2,000 years ago, heard God. And
The Big Bang.
well, the Big Bang's a fact because we can. If you look at space, it's stretching all the time. If you reverse
Thank
it,
you. The Big Bang is a fact. If the Big Bang is a fact, brother,
Right.
if the Big Bang is a fact,
Yes, it is.
and time exists within the universe,
No, there's many universes.
no, you,
As far as I
where
know.
is
Hang on, don't you ask me for
you're
evidence.
simply
Mr.
jumping
God.
around.
Don't you ask
You're
me for
simply
evidence.
jumping
Don't you
around.
dare.
Hold on.
Don't you
Hold
dare.
on. We will come to that. We will come to that.
But at least
We will come to that.
I agree with that.
We
you
will
agree
come
with
to
that?
that. We will come to that. But let's be clear. If
It's
we are
about time.
saying that it is, if we're saying that the Big Bang is a fact, then what we are saying is we do not have an infinite universe. Because
No, we do.
Because
That comes
time,
from the multiverse. No, that comes from the multiverse.
because time
Yes.
is within the cosmos,
No.
and if the cosmos had a beginning,
Hang on.
it is not infinite.
Let me nip this in the bud. Right, first of all, a multiverse would mean multiple universes being blown up from stars at once. And let me finish. Right?
No, that is not a multiverse. That
Hang
is
on.
not a multiverse. That is
is
not a
multiple universes. That's exactly
They're
what it
not
is.
created by stars, my friend.
Yes.
No, they are not.
Explosions of stars.
No, they do not create a Big Bang. That is not.
They don't. Well, you've
No.
all heard it. Please go and research.
Shall I tell you why I know you're wrong?
Feel free.
Because out of the two of us, I've studied physics for a year, and I bet you haven't.
Okay. If you study physics and you
Yeah.
believe in God, then most likely you weren't listening.
Right. So, have you studied physics?
Absolutely not.
Right. So you don't know what a Big Bang is, do you? You don't know what the big expansion was.
As far as Richard Dawkins would have you believe, it is a
As far as Richard Dawkins was a biologist, not a physicist.
He also-
Get your science
hang on,
correct.
You seem awfully triggered.
Richard Dawkins was a biologist, not a physicist. You're appealing to a biologist
It's
to
not
make
relevant.
an
It's
argument
not
about
relevant.
physics.
But you're telling me you know for a fact that it's not a multiverse. You're telling me a man with a beard. Hang on, let me finish before you
Yeah,
start.
of course.
Okay. Now you're telling me that what I'm saying is so illogical. You know, if you did all this, that the universe is expanding. You know, if you
It
reverse,
is.
you know, if you reverse it, you come to one place. That's pretty
Yes.
much a Big Bang, and
Yes.
we can't argue with that.
I believe
so
in the
now
Big
you're
Bang.
telling me that didn't happen.
I believe in
and
the
there was
Big
a
Bang.
Jew that couldn't read.
I believe in the Big Bang.
Said,
Did
love
you
your
not hear
neighbor
me?
like yourself.
Now you and I.
Did you not hear me? I
That's what he
believe
said.
in the
The
Big
Jew, the
Bang.
bearded
Oh, I see. So you believe in the Big Bang.
Yes.
So how do
you know who
definitely
discovered
know?
the Big Bang?
Oh, was it someone religious?
Yeah, a Roman Catholic priest.
Well, he would be because they was all
You know,
religious.
yeah. So you know, this idea that science and religion are in opposition to one another is complete bokum,
No, they really are.
nonsense of secularist liberals like
Do
you.
you know Mount Sinai? Still got
So
a big fan,
explain
like
to
you say?
me why a Roman Catholic priest was the one that came up with the theory of the Big Bang.
Because everyone was religious back then.
No, he was born in the 1900s.
Doesn't matter. You're still back
You've
then.
just
doesn't
said
matter.
everyone was religious back
Even a
then.
couple of
No,
months
they
ago.
weren't.
Yes, they were.
So you don't know history, you don't know science,
Yes, they
and you
were.
don't know the heritage
Yes,
of your
they
own
were.
culture.
My family-
And here's the
Hang
man
on, no.
that's going to save the English and the Europeans. What a joke.
The message of
What a
love your
total
neighbor.
joke.
I don't know what you're talking about. But ultimately,
ultimately,
let me finish.
love your
because
neighbor
we've
like
got other
yourself.
people
The
to talk
message.
to. Right?
Never
Now,
mind.
the point being,
I
so
agree,
far-
this
Bang.
is superior to any
Big
theory
Bang,
of science.
Big Bang, not
Right.
Big Bang. The
Right,
creator, the star.
So then, what you're asserting is,
Who gives a
you
hell?
know all this stuff.
gives a
I'm
hell
asserting
about
I can't prove it. So you have to admit,
Prove
there's
what?
proof that there is or isn't a God.
I have not made that argument.
No, you seem to
What I
believe
asked you
your
was,
heart. No,
what
let
I
me
asked,
finish.
no, let me clear. I asked you, can we get something from nothing? You said yes, and I said prove it.
Because you and I, no, I don't need to prove it. Because you and I,
I don't need to prove it.
Yes.
So the atheist
You've got
who
to now.
demands evidence from the Christian doesn't need to prove his own
You've got to
premises.
now.
Go on.
You and I only know this universe as what we know.
Yes.
The next universe, there could be.
What next universe?
If there is one, listen. Listen, okay. There could be life from weird molten stuff that we don't recognise. You are working from the premise of what we know in this universe. The next universe could be completely different, more interesting. You're talking out your fodderall.
Right. So your whole argument is based upon a theory.
He
If
says.
there is another universe.
So you're reading from a 2,000
So you're
year old
trying,
book.
you're making an ad hominem attack based upon something you can't even prove, and then you're accusing me of believing in something I can't
Projection, much.
prove. Forgive me if I find you illogically inconsistent.
Forgive me if I think you're a prat that can't prove God exists.
It's all right. He's been doing this all the way through the talk.
Respect each
But the
other,
fact
it's
of the
nice.
matter is,
Believe me,
the
trust
fact of the matter is, here is a guy who confuses theological arguments with historical arguments.
anything,
He
mate.
confuses scientific arguments with historical
Okay, doesn't
arguments.
matter.
He doesn't know his own history of his own culture that he's supposedly here to try and speak up
every bit
about.
of history you said is Christian related.
Let me
because
be
you're
clear,
obsessed. It's not
because
relevant.
that is our history as
No, it's not.
Anglo-Saxons.
No, it's not.
Yes.
In other history, where there was lots of stuff going on, there wasn't.
Let's
God,
be
God,
clear.
plagues,
The
Black Death, you name it.
reason why the Anglo-Saxons are losing their culture is because they have abandoned it.
No, it's because
That's
the
right.
EU's bigger in
No,
North Africa.
it's because they have abandoned it.
I am in
English
agreement.
people have abandoned their own culture.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do
No.
with immigration. The process started in the Enlightenment in the 1700s.
Right.
And that process was a disattachment from our Christian history. And therefore, we moved away from our own heritage. We moved away from our
And
own
all of a sudden,
identity.
people weren't living in shitholes.
You're assuming that people were living in shitholes
Yeah,
in the
they
past. No, my friend. Go and look at those medieval buildings, like Westminster Abbey.
They're made of mud.
That was Westminster Abbey was
Oh,
made of
Westminster Abbey.
stone,
Hang on,
and it's
Westminster
a
Abbey.
medieval church,
Come
you
on.
buffoon.
Yes, of course it is.
mud.
Of course
So-
it is. That's different.
So you're saying they lived in mud huts,
Like
they
I
were
said,
building,
hang on, the place where
and the
your book come
Ethiopian
from.
Christians around the same time
calm
were
down.
digging into mountains, cathedrals of similar beauty
But
to
why
what we
does
have
that-
in Europe.
Why does that? Because in a time when people are so primitive, I mean, before that, you are
So
an atheist.
primitive.
You are an atheist.
What?
You believe that every god before yours is wrong. So you're talking shit.
No, my friend. Atheism is the denial of the existence of God.
No,
I
I
believe
don't
God
deny it
exists.
exists. No, let's wipe this clear. I'm not denying God exists. I'm denying the Abrahamic message we're given is rubbish.
Oh, so now you believe in God?
No, I don't believe in him. I cannot prove he doesn't exist. But what we've been given. Hang on.
Tell me, brother.
You took
Please
me
Tell
now.
me, brother.
You forget
No,
about
let
him
speak.
now.
No. Hey, calm down.
I'm the son of Abraham, my brother.
He does this. He does this all the time.
Yeah.
He did this last week to me. He does this all the time. He really needs to get in front of the camera. Yeah? He really needs to get in front of the camera.
I thought that was a
The
joke.
camera.
Yeah?
But the message,
He needs to really get in front of the camera.
The
I'm
message.
trying to
Oh,
talk to
please
him.
let us
Stop
finish.
being rude.
Abraham.
Go on.
Talking about Abraham.
When you say to me,
my
now,
father.
here's when people say to me, there's something out there that created us, I can hear that. But if you say to me there's an omnipotent, perfect person, I disagree, because then you can't explain nastiness. So if you can say
No, we can.
No, you can't.
Yes, we can.
No, you can't.
It's called sin.
No, it's not, but why would you need sin? You're omnipotent God. Why would you create sin? It's not relevant.
No, you see, here, I don't think you actually understand anything of the Christian faith,
I
do you?
was Roman Catholic. I'm probably more
And
religious
that makes
than
you an expert, does it?
Well, I have more,
Does it make you an
I
expert?
probably went to church more than you,
Because
yeah.
does it? No, I believe that you don't. But
No, not anymore,
let's
no.
be clear. Let's be clear. You don't know anything about Roman Catholic teaching,
It's been years, yeah.
right? What does Roman Catholic teaching say about nastiness and where it comes from?
Oh, the devil.
No, sin.
Sin, yeah,
I
but
even
why-
gave you the
why
answer,
would sin exist?
and you still got
hang
it
on,
wrong.
Hang on, you're God
Right.
now. And let me finish this, because this is easy.
Yeah, you keep doing that,
No,
but
yeah, but
you really
you're
don't
one of
make
them
any
fanatics.
strong
No,
points
no,
at all.
I've finished it a few times, but you're a fanatic.
Keep going,
Okay.
go on.
So if I was a multi-billionaire,
Yeah, I believe in the Church Triumphant.
right, okay. If I was a multi-billionaire and I could create a perfect environment for my children,
Yeah,
they would live in bubble wrap. They wouldn't
Right.
be AIDS, dying
you'd be a
at
terrible
6,
father.
right? Well, why? You're omnipotent. You're
Here's
God.
why you'd be a terrible
hang on,
father.
I've not finished. You're
Because you
God.
would not teach your children responsibility by wrapping
hang
them in
on.
cotton.
You're God. Why does there need to be any bad? You don't need responsibility. You're God. So you've done it on purpose. So some people suffer.
Correct.
So if I'm 25
It
and
is deliberate.
and I suddenly find God, or if I'm 50 and I find God, the guy who was 15 who
It is
didn't find
deliberate.
God goes to hell. You're talking rubbish.
So let's be clear. Your characterization of the Christian faith is wrong.
and what about those people before Christianity? Did they all go to hell?
Let me address one point at a time. So your characterization of the Christian faith is wrong. The Christian faith
So you
teaches.
speak of Christianity.
The Christian faith teaches in this discussion, yes. In the Christian faith teaches that God has created human beings to represent His image on earth.
That's a bit
And
suspicious.
as image bearers,
So you're saying we're the most important people.
as image bearers, that means that we have to conduct ourselves with moral responsibility. If we are to conduct ourselves with moral responsibility, that means that our moral choices must have consequences.
Sorry, mate, if you need a book for
Otherwise, we cannot have moral responsibility
Sorry,
for
mate.
our choices.
Sorry, mate.
Now,
if you need a
one
book
second.
to be moral, I'm
One
sorry, but you're
second.
weak.
1 second. 1 second. Now, in terms of the Christian faith, we are taught that the way that we live as moral creatures is to exemplify God's love in ourselves through the way that we love. Have you got a problem with love?
Absolutely not, but you're talking
Okay,
rubbish.
so it's not drivel then,
You're
is it?
talking rubbish.
It's not drivel
right.
if
you
don't
found out
disagree
tomorrow
with it.
God didn't exist,
1
would
second.
you love anyone any less?
You have given me
you
no
wouldn't.
reason
You're
to
talking
doubt the
rubbish.
existence of God because
Answer
it
my
takes
question.
too much faith
Stop
to be an
babbling.
atheist.
Answer my question. If you found
So-
out tomorrow God doesn't exist, would you love your family any less? No, you would not.
If I loved, well, actually, since
Don't
at this
stutter,
moment,
tell me the truth.
if you could shut up for a second, I'd
Mate,
try and
you've
answer
been
your question.
babbling for hours.
Are you able for me to talk?
Oh, unfortunately.
Are you finished?
Well, anyone else? Yeah, I'm ready. Come in.
Right then. So, at this moment in time, as a Christian, I consider my family to include this brother and to include this
Are
brother.
you saying I don't?
Do you?
He's a
Are
human
they your
being.
family?
He's a human being.
Are they your family?
If he's being beaten up, I'll help him.
Are they your family?
Not like you would believe.
Do you love them?
No, certainly not, no.
Right, I love them. So if I
That's a bit creepy.
if I found out tomorrow that God did not
Would you
exist,
love your
I would have
family?
no reason to love them. So
not?
here I am,
Hang
a
on.
white Anglo-Saxon,
Hang on.
loving my Latino brother and loving my
Hang on.
African brother,
All you know is
and
a mass
arguing
murderer.
with against an Anglo-Saxon
Well, you know
who
he's a mass
denies his
murderer
own
and you love him.
heritage?
He could be a paedophile and you love him. You're talking out your ass.
You're talking out my arse.
Yes.
So, because of some spurious general suspicion, you
No,
refuse
you're
to let me-
generalising. You're saying anyone who's Christian you love.
Yes.
You condone paedophiles, lunatics, murderers. You are Wally.
Sorry, where did I say I condone
You just
that?
said you love anyone who's Christian.
Loving
You love-
does not mean condoning.
You are messing up every 5 seconds.
Does a mother that corrects their child from doing wrong
Hang
still
on,
love
hang on.
them?
You.
Does
Would you
it?
still
No.
love? If that person
Are you
was a
going to
paedophile,
answer my question?
If that person was a paedophile,
Are you
would
going
you still
to
love them?
Yes.
Oh,
Are you going
Yes.
to Yes.
You would still love a paedophile.
I would love every sinner, including you, and you're just as bad.
You just said you would.
I would love every sinner. Yes.
You love Satan.
I would love a sinner.
Take my hand.
Does that mean
You just condone paedophilia. I think
no
we're done here.
condoning? You are such a childish
I
mind.
think we're done here.
Does loving mean condoning?
I'm sorry. If you love
I
someone,
want you to answer the question. Does loving mean condoning?
yes.
Right.
If my dad,
Okay.
if my dad was found to be a
Non sequitur
paedophile,
logic.
I'd never talk to him again.
Non sequitur logic. Non sequitur logic. No.
You're an excuser.
Logic.
You're an excuser.
No. Every paedophile should be
You're as
punished.
bad as any terrorist.
Let me just put it on record. Every paedophile should be punished. Paedophilia
Oh, hang
should
on a
be
minute.
against
so
the
do you
law.
love them or not?
Yes, love them.
So the Pope
You're
bans condoms
truly
in
an
Africa,
ignorant man.
and they're all dying of AIDS.
You're
You
so
snap out of it.
desperate, aren't you? So desperate.
Which one of us is shouting?
Let's be clear. Let's be clear. The reason why the English are losing their culture is because they
Hang on,
abandoned their Christian
You've got
faith.
one. You keep coming back to this.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
A minute ago,
The
you defended
reason
paedophiles.
why
This is over, mate. I'm
English
done.
culture is dying is because of people like you.
You just told me.
You are the
love
problem,
paedophiles.
not the solution.
All right. I've heard it all before.
Yeah.
You love paedophiles. I'm afraid we're not going to agree.
Right. Well, I'm happy to love
And you
sinners,
know what? After
including
this,
sinners like you.
Well, I can work out
Including the Dawa team. Including the Dawa team. I love the Dawa team.
Speak yourself.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, you know Queen Elizabeth on the Daily Mail, they have an article, she's the direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
Oh, he's
I know.
The
Daily Mail talks drivel. The Daily Mail talks drivel.
It's scaring us. Ask Tommy. Ask Tommy.
I thought you were visiting him, no? I thought he was your mate.
No one's allowed to.
What are your friends?
No, we've never spoken. No, we're a completely different entity. Yes.
Shall we do a wrap
I
up?
thought you was for Tommy.
No, I support. I didn't want him to get locked up. Oh, I'm not.
That's not right. It needs to drop from himself.
Yeah, but the whole point is it's for the audience, it's not for him.
So, what we've seen here is an immediate display of the inherent contradiction that lay behind these ethno-nationalist movements, these so-called nationalists who want to defend English culture. They are seeking to defend something whilst derooting themselves from the very thing that defines what English culture has been for over 1,000 years, well over 1,000 years, until recent history, and I mean very recent. Christian and the Christian faith has been the very root, the very branch, the very trunk of what it meant to be English. And people that are claiming to defend Englishness or to defend Western culture, that seek to do so whilst disconnecting themselves from their Christian culture and faith, are in no way going and achieving what they are claiming to be about. And what we also see is the radical difference between nationalism and Christianity. Because as a Christian, I am for the church and the church triumphant, which is an international community that involves Russians, Americans, Latinos, Africans, Europeans, Australasians. It doesn't see colour. And in terms of its culture, it embraces all that which is godly within these cultures and brings them together. And so as a Christian, I have no problem with the idea of de-whiting Europe. What I have a problem with is de-Christianization. And these people are in opposition to European culture and cannot therefore claim to be its defenders. And as Christians, we commit ourselves to an international agenda, a brotherhood of the whole church, and to see the whole church triumphant against all of her enemies. And that includes extreme nationalists like we've seen here today. I'm not going to say he's an ethno-nationalist, because I don't think he is. But I think he's very close. He's as far as being a nationalist can be without being an ethno-nationalist. And I think it would be to mischaracterize him if I were to call him an ethno-nationalist. But let's be clear, his nationalism has no root in this land. His nationalism has no root in Europe. His nationalism has no connection to the Christian civilization that has been European. And every Nigerian Christian, every Ethiopian Christian, every Arab Christian, every Japanese Christian, every Indian Christian, St. Paul's and the Westminster Abbey and the whole of the Christian church here is your heritage, just as those cathedrals in Ethiopia and just as those Christian developments in Nigeria belong to me. And this is what we as Christians must stand for, against all forms of nationalism, especially this incoherent, illogical, uneducated kind.